In Whitechapel, 1888, 5 women were brutally murdered by a psychopath who stalked the streets of East London. 4 out of the 5 women were known as the Canonical Five, were disemboweled by a Whitechapel fiend known as Jack the Ripper. This was also known as the Autumn of Horror, as one man stalked the streets of Whitechapel, killing his victims. The murderer became known at first as Leather Apron, and then later on Jack the Ripper. And until this very day, his identity remains a mystery. He has never been caught, but there has been many suspects and speculations as to who this murderer was. He has no regard for human life at all, and probably viewed the streetwalkers in Whitechapel as the scum of society. Maybe he himself had a bad experience with these women and decided to take revenge. The murder sites today would be Bucks Row, known as Durwood Street, the site of Mary Nichols' murder, August 31st, 1888. The next would be 29 Hanbury Street, the site of the murder of Annie Chapman, September the 8th, 1888. Next would be Burner Street, the site of Elizabeth Stride's murder on September 30th. And then Mitre Square, the site of Catherine Eddowes' murder, September 30th, 1888. She was discovered at 1:45 a.m. by a police constable, P.C. Watkins, who was controlling his beat into the Mitre Square area in the city of London, and found the body of Catherine Eddowes, the second victim of what would be called the double event, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes in one night. The murder of Mary Ann Kelly, November 9th, 1888. The body of the final victim of the so-called Canonical Five was found in her room at 13 Miller's Court, off of Dorset Street in Spitalfields. One of the most haunted places in Whitechapel would be the 10 Bells pub in the East End of London in what is known as Spitalfields. It is known to be extremely haunted, and there have been reports of spectral sightings of some of the Ripper victims. Many within the pub have seen objects move, apparitions, and maybe even the Ripper himself. The 10 Bells is standing on the corner of Commercial Street and Fournier Street, and believe it or not, it hasn't changed since 1888 due to the pub's supposed connection to Jack the Ripper. In 1976, the landlord changed its name to the Jack the Ripper with the hope of increasing the pub's popularity and profit. However, after 12 years, the pub got its original name back and has been operating under the name of the 10 Bells pub. Jack the Ripper's story was not the only eerie story happening within the walls of the 10 Bells over the centuries. During the 1990s, the staff living in the building regularly witnessed the ghost of a Victorian dressed man appearing and disappearing. Even today, customers regularly report about seeing the above ghost in the pub. Annie Chapman's ghost is also believed to haunt within the building. Gusts of winds and moving objects have been reported by the staff, by the customers, and even the landlord himself. Now, Ripper victims were known to frequent the 10 Bells pub. In spring of 1888, Elizabeth Stride, one of the Ripper victims, was thrown out of the pub for drunk and disorderly behavior. Mary Jane Kelly, the last of the Canonical Five, was seen in the pub with a friend on the night before her grisly death. Allegedly, Annie Chapman was said to be drinking alone in the 10 Bells only hours before her body was later discovered. With such a strong connection to Jack the Ripper, it isn't hard to see why the 10 Bells has become famous for being one of the Ripper's main haunts. But this isn't all. Given its sinister and deadly gruesome history, Whitechapel really is haunted. Indeed, so dark and creepy are some of the old streets and alleyways that it would not come as any great surprise to spot all manner of specters lurking in the East End shadows of London. Whitechapel most certainly does, and it has ghosts. Elsewhere, the former Truman Brewery building, part of which stands on the site of the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, where one of the murders took place, where Annie Chapman was found on the morning of September 8th, 1888, is said to be subject to distinct and literal screams, chills on the anniversary of her murder. There is also talk of the cobblestones in Mitre Square, at the site where Catherine Eddowes was murdered on the 30th of September, 1888, glowing red with blood on the anniversary of that heinous crime, albeit with the recent complete redevelopment of Mitre Square. But only time will tell if the phenomenon continues. Today you can visit the Jack the Ripper Museum on Cable Street, and it is near the murder site of Elizabeth Stride in Dutfield's Yard, and it is also said to be haunted with artifacts associated with the Ripper crime scenes. Maybe you should take a trip to Whitechapel and conduct your own paranormal investigation, and who knows, maybe you might see one of the Ripper victims or some type of specter or ghost, or maybe even the Whitechapel fiend himself, who today, over 150 years later, has never been identified. But he will go down as one of the most gruesome serial murderers in history. When you have a chance, please visit our Facebook page, Paranormal Adventures, and join our community and talk about your experiences with the paranormal. And also visit our website, ripsociety.net. And when you have a chance, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much.